All right, I'm gonna try to give a quick review. Got out of the theater to watch Resident Evil Welcome to Raccoon City. Well, it's not a remake. Yeah, it would be a reboot. So a reboot to the original movie series that we had before that had I was about to say Angelina Jolie, Mila Jovovich. So and also too, you have that alternate one with the ones that's based off the video games, which are the animated films, which I think are actually pretty well done. One day if you want, or if I feel like it, maybe I'll start, just like the Marvel films, have like a special or something of, hey, let's do Resident Evil. I actually forgot the movie was coming out today because the campaigning was actually not that great. The marketing just wasn't. I mean, I seen it. Me and my friends talked about it because my one friend, one of his favorite characters is Leon. That's one of the only times I've ever known him to cosplay, and that's who he cosplayed as. So, yeah. He would do more, him and his girl do it, but like a lot of times she does the cosplaying, but in particular, he did it. That's like one of the few. So, now you got this thing going on with, I had some reservations. I don't remember if I did bring that noise for it or not. One of the things that stood out for me right away was the fact that Leon, who I think, if I remember correctly, in the games is supposed to be a blonde-haired, blue-eyed Caucasian guy, looked a little ethnic. And he did not have the blonde hair, blue eyes. Now, my friend who loves Leon, my favorite character actually from the Resident Evil series is Chris Redfield. My friend who likes Leon, he said, well, that won't bother him at all if it's, if he captures Leon. My problem is that and he did kind of bring it up later because I mentioned it, and I think he mowed it over and then kind of thought about it. One of my big issues when it comes to them race swapping these characters and stuff like that is their reasoning isn't because they picked the best actor. A lot of times their reasoning is because they wanted to hit a checkbox. Now, you had Stephen Amell play Chris Redfield, which is funny because, I'm sorry, I said Stephen Amell. I meant Robbie Amell. Stephen is his cousin. That's the guy who played Arrow. Robbie Amell played Chris Redfield, which he was actually my pick to play him. And if I had it my way, Steven would have been Leon. Except the problem is that Steven, between being Arrow and then now playing in that wrestling show Heels, he's kind of a bulkier dude. Like, they're both in actually crazy shape. But he's, just from the type of roles he's had, he's a little bit bigger. And when it comes to Leon and Chris Redfield, it's kind of the other way around. But I still would have been okay with, and I thought that would have been cool. But they went with this guy. And the reason why I'm bringing up this guy, because that was my first apprehension when I saw the trailer. Now, here's the problem I have with how they were doing it. As they did this film, and I didn't hate everything, I'm just talking about the things that really stood out that had problems, and if you're a fan, I want to make you aware of. This is me basically reviewing it, but I'm going to try to keep it spoiler light, but I am going to talk about the characters, because 9 out of 10, if you're watching it, it's probably because you like the video games. This is definitely much closer to the video game. However, Leon in this film was, for some weird reason, which even I can acknowledge, Leon's the most popular character. I know they usually have Claire being like the character, but that's because they push her character. But most people I know that really are into Resident Evil are actually into Leon. Leon has what is considered the best video game, which is for a lot of people that I've talked to, except for the newest one. I know a lot of people like the last two like a lot, But prior to these last two, 6 and 7 or something, it was Resident Evil 4. And even the movies are kind of based around that Resident Evil 4 thing, because Leon is an incredible character. They're capitalizing on the re-release of the game. And the issue is that this dude, who's supposed to be a police officer, like, first off, he's taking crap from everybody. And this movie, just like the commercial shows you, they did take the first game and the second game and kind of mash them together. I guess because they happened roughly around the same span of time, in that 3 days or whatever of whatever was going on. So it was simple just to kind of do that. And I actually understand why they did that, because you could cover a lot of ground if you cut it the right way. It was odd though, because like Leon was so inept that even he questioned himself. He was like talking to Claire, and he does this thing for a line where he goes, "You're probably wondering why I was a police officer." Because he didn't even know how to cock a shotgun. You know, a thing that most people know just from watching movies, even if they don't know nothing else, even if they don't know how to load the thing, they know you have to cock it. He was like, it's jammed or something, and she did it. And when he goes, "You're probably wondering when I'm a police officer," she goes, "Yeah." He goes, "Me too," and just walks off. And I'm like, well, did you have training? Because normally to become a police officer, you're supposed to have training. Like, what is going on here? It was crazy. And a couple times he had his Leonness come out, where you saw some flare of Leon, but even then it was almost like panic mode. And when you watch Leon in any of the games or anything, this guy survives on his own. Like, it's not that he's just lucky, he's just like naturally good. But in this, it was like he was kind of lucky. Like, people had to pull him out the fire, and he was kind of useless, which was really weird. And like, and it was like he was the butt of every joke in the movie. And I'm like, well, if I was a Leon fan, this would actually piss me off. Now, he had the look of Leon by a certain point in the movie, like the physical, but he still, and I see why they gave him that hair, because dude was like, "You look like a hippie," and I'm just like, oh, okay, why are they doing this? Because he's the popular male character and he outshined female or something? Now, I know some people are like, well, you shouldn't think that way. The problem is, that's how media has gotten to. It's like, let's outshine them. Now, so that was kind of odd. Then you had a guy that was playing Wesker, except he reminded me more of Wesker's son from the one game. And I was like, he would have been more like that. And he was also characterized a little weird. Like, they still kept some of his Wesker stuff, but I'll put it to you like this. The Weskers that we got from the old series and the Leon that we got from the old series were closer to being Leon than what we got in these movies and what we got as Wesker. Now, it wasn't like Wesker was completely and utterly not himself, but there were certain things about him that were odd. Like, where it was out of character. He was a little bit more, he wasn't exactly this, but he was kind of a little bit more dude, bro. He was tall, handsome, like, and they kind of played that up with him getting with women and stuff, so that was a little weird. And they also got Hannah Kamen-Joy to play Jill Valentine. Now, Jill has always been good with this stuff. I actually really like Jill, and the tweak they did for who they were the police department instead of the thing, I actually, you know, that didn't really bother me. I thought that was actually a good idea. She was kind of a gun nut. Like, they did this thing where they were gonna play this joke, and she like pulls out her gun and they're like, "Yo, what are you doing?" And she's kind of gun crazy, and it was kind of weird. Now, I know some people might complain about Hannah came Joy with the thing. Now, the factor to her, or at least a factor towards her, is, like I said before, she is part Scandinavian, and that's why she's a little racially ambiguous because of that. Now, I'm one of the people who did not hate the old Resident Evil series. I know. People are like, oh, how could you, blah, blah, blah. Well, my thing is, some of the movies were better than others. But I actually enjoyed them. Now, I've played Resident Evils. I haven't played all of them. Nor do I plan to. I play the ones I actually really like. I would play the remastered ones though. But here's one of the funky things. She had some, it was like they definitely had pieces of the characters, you know what I mean? Like, there was pieces of the characters there, but her characterization off of the original one was a better representation of her as a character. From the haircut look to the thing, and it kind of blended them together to all be in one group thing. So I was like, okay. But I kind of liked how they handled the other one a little bit better with the characterization. And this one, but for the movie, I noticed the characters worked for the movie and what they were trying to portray. But the problem is they were so far removed from who they were that it felt a little awkward, especially with a lot of character dialogue. Like, they were cursing a lot when there wasn't a point to be cursing. And, you know, I try to keep my, channel, where a youth or a person, I'm not hurting virgin ears, as they say, right? But they were like dropping F-bombs at random. It was like they couldn't think of anything else to say. So they just did that. And at first it was like, okay, that happens once or twice. But then it happens a few times where it's like, we're allowed to say the F. It felt like that. It's like, we're allowed to say the F word. So we're just going to say the F word. Yeah. And I was like, huh? What? Why? What are we doing here? And it was odd. I don't know why, but they did. Like, there's one literally, like, there's a scene where it's like, F. And I'm like, really? But there's nothing going. It was nothing going on. Just started saying it. And Chris Redfield, Claire Redfield were actually very good characterizations. And there was and the other ones I thought they did a decent job with the characterizations too. I actually liked Wentworth Miller as well. Funny enough, the two Chris Redfields played CW characters. The original one, Wentworth, was playing, he played Snart off of The Flash. And this one, which is Robbie, played Firestorm off of The Flash. So it's funny that two Flash characters ended up playing Chris Redfield at different points in his life. And I actually like both depictions, because Wentworth, it was a bigger dude. They kind of gave him a jumpsuit to make him seem even a little bit more bigger. But they kind of played up, he had him, he had Claire. But then again, he was kind of racially ambiguous too, because he's actually been cast in a lot of Caucasian roles, but you find out he's actually biracial and very much identifies black. But I really like Wentworth Miller. But anywho, so trying to think, outside of that, the characterizations, you got a mid-credit scene. In some aspects, they were in place, and in some aspects, they were out of place. Like I said, dialogue sometimes got clunky, and I'm not even a huge dialogue person, because sometimes I know people don't speak and they do text speak, but it did come off a little clunky. Now, there is some amazing stuff in here. There's stuff that looks straight out of the video game, like in the police station with the big statue. Even though when they go into the two other rooms, it didn't fit, which was kind of weird. It was like they went to another room, and I'm like, I feel like now you're in a small town precinct instead of Raccoon City precinct. Like, it was like they went to a different set because they went back and decided that they needed to reshoot, but they couldn't get the set back. So they kind of threw it in there, I guess you could say, to make it seem like it was all right. So sure. And like it was just a little jarring for a second. They had some straight up video game moments. One of the cool things is they did this thing where there was a stint where the gunfire was the only light you could see. That was great, that whole sequence. They did the classic zombie when you first do the zombie in the game in the mansion, and you know he's kind of hard to kill. They had the zombies come out the way you got to see the transformations was nice. They gave a backstory explanation of why the guy in the truck was turning. And you get some things. You actually do see some things that were from the game right off the bat. Some of the villain characters that were there. That was good. So there was some good stuff in this movie. There's this orphanage thing too that they added in, which I'm getting why, but they could have. There's a way they could have actually did it and not even did that, because the orphanage thing was like 5 minutes or 6 minutes, but it dragged a tiny bit, and they could have actually cut that into the film a bit more instead of doing it the way they did it. It was kind of like, all right, well, let's get to the good stuff. When things popped off, they really had some establishing. I could see some people being bored with it. It was also a little slow, which, you know, is like the video game in a sense that you kind of explore it and things start to pop off. But it's that's a slow burn of Resident Evil before it became more of an action franchise. And all in all, I like the things. I'm trying not to go too deep into anything. It was very straightforward. I definitely like seeing how the people started becoming zombies and why the zombies looked a certain way in the first game. They kind of low-key gave an explanation of that. I really like that. I also really liked the designs of the things. I thought it was shot very well. I thought things looked good. My biggest gripe was actually Leon and how he was handled. And I just thought it was a little weird to make Jill like a gun nut. And I know that sounds weird what I'm saying, but like, no, like she was like, they would be doing something, she would start squeezing off, like to the point where people would constantly have to like put her gun down, like stop. So that was a little weird. Like I said, the sets to me were great. I loved looking at the mansion. I loved the police station. Like, I thought that stuff was awesome. When the fighting went, I thought that looked great. Like, it was really well done. The action was good once the action finally happened. I liked the desperation. You got to experience a couple things, and I feel like they did this so they could really push into the third one. And I felt like they also did some stuff a little smidge different where they combined them so the next movie they can kind of go more their own direction, maybe be close to the third game but veer away a little. But beyond that, my rating for it is, overall, it like didn't blow my mind, or I was like, oh my god. It was like, oh, okay, that's really cool. And I really like that Chris Redfield kind of also showed he had that strength. So I would say, overall, I had a good time. It was nothing over the top. It wasn't like I was like, oh my goodness, but I was like, oh, I had a good time with this. It wasn't like I was like, oh, this is bad. I do think that there's some definitely room for improvement, and if they make another one, I hope they take a little bit more time. And I definitely seen some falling since the fact that you're taking like 2 video games, which I think altogether is like 20 something hours of gameplay, and trying to mash it into a 2-hour movie. I think that was a little bit rough, and I think they could have told a story, and if they would have veered from the game a little bit more but kept the sets and the things like that, and it felt like they depended on you knowing these characters too. That was another weird thing about it. It was like they depended on you to know these characters, and it didn't approach it for people who may never seen or experienced Resident Evil. So overall, I had a good time. It wasn't great. To me, it was actually on the same level as the other ones, except I do I did like the first movie to the other one a little bit more. I like the action, the pickup, and kind of how they did it. There were certain things like the train and stuff. So, but I like the mystery and how they approach, because to me, it was always, the other series was always, well, what if the main protagonist got superpowers? Where they never really did that in Resident Evil, and how it went about. So this is Geek Protagonist. You stay safe, you stay healthy, you stay real. And tell me if you've seen the movie, and I'll see you.